Hey guys, in this video, I want to share with you about anxiety. For the past month and a half, I have taken what I like to call an unscheduled vacation due to extreme anxiety. My body just literally shut down and I couldn't think, I couldn't work, I literally couldn't do anything. I couldn't really do much of anything except for clean, organize, and paint. I literally painted half of my house and refinished 2 dressers. That was definitely not on my plan or my agenda for those weeks, and it was so frustrating because I felt like I'm, such a failure. I got behind. I let all my emotions kind of rule me and run the days. And it was just so frustrating. And I can tell you, whether you deal with mild cases of anxiety or extreme cases of anxiety, we can all agree that it's pretty miserable. So I don't throw the term around lightly when I use the word anxiety, because I know it's a living hell when you're struggling and dealing with this. And so in this video, I want to share with you the top 6 signs of anxiety that I found to be very true for myself and what I was going through. And there are others that you can kind of look up and find out, but these were the 6 that definitely hit home for me. And I know it's one of those that plagues a lot of other people. And for this video, I am going to include a disclaimer. In this video, the information provided should not be used for diagnosing or treating a health problem or disease, and those seeking personal medical advice should consult with a licensed physician. Always seek the advice of your doctor or other qualified health providers regarding a medical condition. These are only the accounts of my personal experiences and what I have found that personally works for me. So the first thing I think we have to do is really define what is anxiety. Anxiety is the feeling of fear or dread or uneasiness. So when anxiety hits, it's like a heightened level of nervousness and intenseness, and kind of, I like to describe it as like you feel like somebody's about to break into your house at any given moment and you're just not prepared. And so that's a little bit of a way that I can kind of give you an analogy of what the anxiety feels like for me. And so what I want to do is list out some of the symptoms that you may experience when you do have anxiety. So like I mentioned earlier, you have a feeling of nervousness, restlessness, or you're really tense. It can also cause you to have an anxiety of impending danger, panic, or doom. It can also increase your heart rate. It can cause hyperventilation to where you're breathing really rapidly and fast. It can cause sweating. It can cause tremoring and shaking, and you get really nervous physically, like you can physically see your body shaking, and you have trouble concentrating, you lose train of thought, you can't remember anything because the only thing you can think about is all the things that's going through your head and worrying you and keeping you really anxious and amped up. So you can't think about anything else. It's just, nothing's making sense at this point in the game. It generally affects your sleeping, so you begin to not be able to sleep well, and you have problems controlling the worry, like you're worrying about everything that could possibly go wrong or happen, and whether it's, happened or not, that's something that's on your mind. You're just constantly in a state of worry. And the last symptom is you generally try to avoid the things that is triggering your anxiety. And a lot of times whenever we start getting anxiety with something that we're doing or dealing with, we start avoiding it. We start thinking, oh, maybe I should come back to this later when I'm not so amped up and so anxious. But really, that's the worst thing that we can do. The thing you really want to remember is whenever you're dealing with anxiety, the root of anxiety is fear. It is caused by fear. So we need to get to the bottom of what are you fearful of? What is causing you to stress out? Is it because you don't feel prepared enough? Is it because you don't feel like you know enough about whatever it is you're talking about? Or is it because you don't feel like you're, can do what you're being asked to do? And you don't want to say that in fear of, hey, I may lose my job or what have you. So it's really, you got to get to the bottom of that to really get peace and ease with it. And I'm going to go into that more in detail here later on in the video. So I want to talk about what fear does to our body. It stifles our thinking and our thought process, and we get to where we can't think clearly, and so we kind of start getting stuck and feeling paralyzed in what we're dealing with. And then it shuts us completely down once it gets to a certain point, and we feel like we're the only ones dealing with it, and so then it starts causing all kind of other issues with your body. You may notice a headache, you may notice stomach issues, you may notice, hey, I'm not sleeping really good tonight, or I can't go to sleep, or you're constantly in worry. And so the first sign I want to highlight is overthinking. Whenever anxiety hits, we tend to start overthinking everything. That is when all the what if thoughts start flooding in. You start thinking, well, what if I lose my house? What if I lose my business? What if it all goes under? What if I lose all the traction that I've gained up until now just because my anxiety just shut me down for no apparent reason? And so your brain just starts running away with you, and it gets on a spin loop of repeating the same thoughts over and over, and then that's just amping you up even more. And so here are some of the ways that I have found that really help me to deal and get through those moments when I'm that amped up. And so the first thing that I find that helps me is to own it and accept it. just know that it's an emotion and a feeling that you are going through and feeling at the moment. It's temporary. It's not permanent. It's just gonna, it's gonna run its course. Kind of has those peaks and valleys is what I like to, give you an example of. One minute you're okay, and then the next minute, your hair's on fire kind of thing. So whenever I'm in those moments, I just try to keep reminding myself and repeating to myself, it's temporary. It's temporary. It's not permanent. This is going to change. Just give it time. Just give it time. It's temporary. And I just constantly try to get that in the record and on the spin table, because otherwise I just keep getting more and more amped up. And so one of the things that I'll highly suggest you to do is distract yourself. This will help to disrupt your thoughts. And so a way to do that is you could go on a walk, you could work on a hobby or something that brings you joy and excitement and you really like doing it. You could read a book, you could watch a show. This will basically, like I said, ultimately just disrupt that thought process. The next thing I'm going to suggest for you to do is to create an anxiety journal. This is going to be so helpful in the long run. You could use just a regular spiral notebook. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. You could also use your phone, your notes section on your phone. You could use Google Docs, whatever's convenient for you. I will say having it electronically is nice, because when I go to my doctor's appointments, I can kind of type in keywords in whatever app I put it in and get to it very quickly and easily and say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with on a day-to-day basis. This is how long it lasted. These are the types of thoughts and feelings I'm having, blah, blah, blah. And so that's the next thing I want to cover is, what do you put inside of your anxiety journal? You want to date it, and then you want to also note how you're feeling. You want to also document any pains or issues that you're having mentally or physically. Also document the ways that you're choosing to kind of combat this stress and anxiety. And so that could be, I went on a 20-minute walk, or I went to the movies, or I did blah, blah, blah. You just want to kind of note whatever it is that you did. The next thing you want to include in your anxiety journal is, what were you working on, or what happened? What situation were you dealing with before all these thoughts started flooding your mind and, your head? And so was it a family issue? Was it a work issue? Was it a personal issue? Was it a diagnosis? What was it that caused you to kind of get amped up and start having these thoughts? And at the end of the day, you want to be sure to go back and highlight, like either star or highlight, what thing you did that helped kind of calm you down and ease the tension a little bit and ease that anxiety. Even if it's just a little bit, that helps, because that's something that can kind of be built on. And as you commit to doing this on a consistent basis, you're going to start to see things that kind of trigger you and amp you up. And in the long run, you'll start to be able to see those things coming and be able to develop solutions and ways to kind of work around that or do things differently so that you don't get back into that anxiety rut. And the next sign of anxiety is avoidance. And most people think, well, maybe I should just avoid doing whatever's stressing me out right now or making me feel amped up and, avoid this person, avoid this situation, avoid, whatever the issue is. And really, in reality, that's the last thing we need to do, because anxiety is rooted in fear. And the only way to get to the bottom of that and to get past the whole avoiding situation is we've got to say, stop, let me sit down and just do a full brain dump. What is scaring me? What am I nervous about? Like physically and mentally stop, because at the end of the day, anxiety is rooted in fear. And so we've got to dig deep and figure out, why am I getting so anxious about this? Why am I getting amped up? Like, what is it? Am I fearful that I don't know enough about this subject? And do I feel like I can't do the job that I'm, needing to do? Do I feel like I'm just not good enough? What is it? What's holding you back? What's stopping you from getting it done or avoiding it? That's what you've got to figure out and then reverse engineer it. And so a good way to kind of just get all of your thoughts out of your head, that's the other big thing about this, is you've kind of got to get rid of all of the thoughts that's in your head and just brain dump it, like basically brain bomb it, and list all of those things down that you're worrying about and that's going through your head, and then say, okay, here's what I could do to fix this. If I'm scared that I don't know enough about the topic I'm training on, very similar to this situation that I'm in currently right now as I'm filming this video, I am very well versed in how anxiety feels to me and what it does to me and how it shuts me down, but I still need to be able to explain that in a way that makes sense to somebody that's watching this video. So I had to sit down and research it. And so maybe it's something that you're going to have to do, is to, allot a little extra time to research something that's going to give you a little bit more confidence on a topic or subject that you're talking about, or whatever it is that you're doing or, scared to do or nervous to do. You're going to have to figure out, what can I do to fix this? How can I get around this? What is the workaround? That's what you've got to think every time you want to avoid something, is what way can I reverse engineer this and work around this whole issue? So the next sign of anxiety is procrastination. Basically, you start finding creative ways to avoid the things you know you need to be doing. So for example, you'll start mindlessly scrolling on Facebook or Instagram, and you'll start organizing your rock collection, painting half of your house, refinishing drawers, basically anything and everything except for what you need to be doing. So here are some tips and ways that I have found to be very helpful with overcoming procrastination when you're in that anxiety rut. The first thing is, you're going to get absolutely sick of me saying this, but it is so critically important, is to do a brain dump. A lot of times we just have so many things that we're like, oh God, I got to get this done, this done, this done, this done. And it's just like running on repeat, like 100 miles an hour. And you're like, I don't know where to start. Everything needs to be done. I'm getting completely stressed out. So the way to kind of reel that in and pull that back to focus and to really dial in what you need to get done is to just start brain dumping all the things that you know you need to get done. Just write it down. And then the next thing is prioritize each of the items by most important to least important. And so that will kind of give you like a game plan to kind of run on and what to focus on, the first 3 things that need to get done. And then the next critical step that you need to do is now create a realistic deadline for each of those tasks that you have created that need to be done. Write down beside each of those tasks how long it's going to take. And then the next step I want you to do is plug those into your planner or into your phone. If you use your phone as a planner, then you can totally plug all of that in there. Once you get it plugged into your phone, you want to be sure you're setting alarms for it to go off so that it totally reminds you and says, hey, this is what you should be doing. So that way we're not just flying by the seat of our pants throughout the entire day. So this will give you complete clarity and alerts and alarms of, hey, this is what needs to be done now. Okay. And next, if you're a pen and paper type planner person, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But what you'll want to do is create alarms inside of your phone and, name it whatever that task is, and then set a time for that alarm to go off for that specific task. But basically, this is going to be like a kind of a reminder of, hey, this is what you're supposed to be doing right now. And so this way it keeps you completely dialed in and super focused, and you know what needs to be done. And then the next thing that I want you to start doing is, once you start getting each of these tasks done and completed, I want you to completely check them off. Like, check, got that done. Check, got that done. And as you start doing that, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Like, it always makes me so excited when I start checking off different things. I don't know, it makes me feel so accomplished. And I feel like I'm like winning. And I don't know what I'm winning, but it seems really important. And so I definitely highly suggest you to do that. But in reality, I do know what you're winning. You're actually winning your day. That is the grand prize that I'm ultimately winning. And you're going to just feel so much more accomplished when you're able to just physically make that check and be able to get those things done that you wanted to get done. But most importantly, in turn, this gets you back into action. It takes you out of that like, oh gosh, I'm just froze and I don't know what the heck to do. My hair's on fire kind of situation and everything's urgent. Now you've kind of got a dialed in plan and you're like, okay, I know what I'm doing. No big deal. So the next thing I'll suggest for you to do, which is really fun for me, I play a little game with myself. It's called I can do anything for X amount of time, meaning I can do anything for 10 minutes or I can do anything for 15 minutes. And I set a timer for whatever time I'm willing to meet myself at. If it's 10 minutes, it's 10 minutes. If it's 20 minutes, it's 20 minutes. So for however long I'm willing to kind of, dedicate to get this thing done, I set that timer for that amount of time. And once the timer goes off, I get up and I basically reward myself. And rewarding myself could look as simple as I get to have a Coke Zero, or I get to go have a cup of coffee, or I get to go make myself a fancy latte. But it's just the little simple things that's just going to break up my time for about 5 minutes. And then I sit back down and I redo the whole process all over again. It's basically just a fun way to break up your work. And one of the things that researchers have learned is we are good for a solid 4 hours. And then after that, we're kind of toast. So basically meaning like those 4 hours, we're mentally sharp. We're on top of our game. We know what we're doing. And then after that, we kind of start losing our little mental edge there. And we're just a little bit like more relaxed and just not able to really fully concentrate. And so that's why it's so critically important to be sure you're taking little, small breaks throughout your workday. And then the next sign of anxiety is trouble concentrating. And this is basically when your thoughts are running through your head a mile a minute, just like NASCAR racing, like going around the track, like zoom, zoom, zoom. It's the same thing. You basically start losing your train of thought. You start changing the subjects in conversations, and then you start having a hard time completing any task that you've got going on. So here are some tips on how to start combating trouble concentrating. The first thing you want to do is eliminate distractions and stop multitasking. We think these days that we are so good with multitasking. We're like, oh my gosh, I can totally just go in here and really throw this laundry of clothes in really quick. I can prep dinner while I'm up already, and then I'll get back to answering that email, and then I'll also work on these graphics that I need to get done. And you've just got too many irons in the fire, so to speak. week. And so you've really got to dial that in, and you've got to say, hey, no, look, this time I have allotted for doing this, this, and this. These are my top 3 things that I've got to get done for this week. So if I get, sidetracked and start getting squirrely and doing this, this, and this, then I'm not going to be able to get this done, which is the most important thing that needs to be happening to move my business forward. So you really have to kind of have that self-talk with yourself and just dial yourself back in and get, concentrated on what it is you're trying to do. The next thing I would highly suggest is to find a quiet place to work. If your home is not a quiet place to work, then you can totally go to the library. You could go to a Starbucks. You could come to a park like where I'm at right now. And it just gives you a way to just kind of be in solitude and be able to have quiet time to, truly focus on what it is you need to get done. And you're going to be able to work more effectively. And the other really cool thing about it is when you come out to a park, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm really enjoying my job today. It's really nice to be able to take my office outside and just be in nature. So that's one of the really cool things that I have found that really helps me when I'm starting to kind of, get really amped up and just can't concentrate, can't get anything done at home. It's like, okay, maybe I need to change up my environment. And another thing that I find myself with having trouble when I'm having issues concentrating is because I'm trying to remember a lot of different things. Sometimes it's just random ideas that pop into my head and I'm like, oh my gosh, that would be the best course idea, or oh my gosh, that would be the best book title, or oh my gosh, that would be the best freebie to, create. And so I'm like, oh gosh, I can't forget that, but I don't have time to write it down. No, yes, you do. Just stop and write it down. You can do that in 1 or 2 ways. You can carry a notebook with you and write it down old school style, pen and paper, or you can just use the notes section of your cell phone and jot that note in real quick, and then you can come back to it later. That way you don't feel like you're losing your ideas and you're parking that in your headspace, and that's just taking up room and creating anxiety. Like whenever we are basically amped up, a lot of times it's just we've got a lot going on in our head and we really just need to get it out. We need to talk it out maybe, or we maybe need to think it out. And maybe in that current time that we're trying to, work on something else, it's not the best time to think through a whole idea that we got that popped up in our head. So save that for later, and it'll take that anxiety out of that portion of, oh my gosh, I've got to remember this. You will just, work smarter, not harder, so to speak. Just put little systems in place for yourself that, takes care of those types of situations. And that's one of the biggest things that's helped me the most is when I find a broken system in the way I work, in my mode of operation, basically, I say, okay, what is the fix for this? What is the hack? What is the workaround? What is going to get me back in motion and working on my business? So that's just, one of the things that I personally do. And it's really started working really good for me, because then I know, okay, this is what I should be doing when this happens, or, the next time it happens, I have a plan in place to basically attack those types of situations. And the next symptom of anxiety that I want to highlight is constantly worrying. And that is a hard one. It's like, man, you can't just shut off the thoughts. You literally worry about everything. It's like those thoughts, they just keep flooding your mind and they play on repeat. It's very much so like the Lamb Chop song, I feel like. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just driving myself crazy. I cannot quit thinking about all these different things that I'm thinking about, and it's just several different thoughts on repeat. You start worrying about, what if I don't make enough money? What if my business closes? What if this? What if that? What if? And you get lost in that whole spin cycle of that situation. And I will promise you, I'm not going to be the person that says, oh, well, just stop worrying about it. Like if you thought, like, don't you think if I could do that, I would do that? Like, I'm not going to tell you that, because that was one of the things that has always irritated me, is when I'm telling somebody, look, these are the concerns and the issues that I'm thinking about and having. And then they tell me, well, just don't think about that. Think about something else. Change your mind, change your thought process and blah, blah, blah. Like sometimes I just can't. Okay. And, sometimes the voices in your head's a little louder than you want them to be. And, you might be a little crazy at a given moment, and believe me, we're all crazy at different times. It just, sometimes we're a little more crazier than normal, and so I'm okay with that now. So here's some things that I'm going to give you to kind of think about and chew on whenever you're worrying about stuff. Is basically play what I like to call devil's advocate. What if it does happen? What am I going to do? How will I get through that is going to be the next question. If that does happen, what will I do? How will I get through it? How will I be able to move on? And, just live it out, let myself live it out. And I promise you, this was a therapist who actually taught me this whole process, and it actually works. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. I would get through it. I would figure out what the next best step is in that situation with the information I've got, and can make a decision from that. I would just do my best, and that's all I can do. And that'll have to be good enough. And then the next thing I ask myself is, what's the best thing that could happen? Like, what if it works out to be better than what I think it is? What if, something better comes out of it than I think is going to happen? Or, entertain the thought of what if it is better than what you're thinking it's going to be? That's kind of where you have to kind of get with that process. And so that's going to kind of give your brain a different way to kind of look at it and spin it a little bit. And it'll kind of make those little voices in your head go, and be like, oh, okay, she's got a different way she's thinking about it today. We're not going to be able to knock her off her A game. And so that's what you want to do, and entertain it. And then the next thing I like to remind myself of is 85% of the things that we fear and worry about never happen. They never come to fruition. And so that's comforting, knowing just that alone. And then the flip side of that coin is, yes, 15% of what you worried about could actually happen. And what people have discovered is it wasn't as bad as they thought it was going to be, or it may have been an even better, outcome to the situation than they expect, and that they had, kind of built up in their head. Because I can assure you, a lot of times when we're building a situation up in our head, it's a whole lot worse than what it actually turns out to be. So that's a good thing, and that's comforting to kind of know that, and know that that's generally the way things play out. And if nothing else, you did learn something, and you learned probably a really valuable lesson with that process. The last thing that I'll mention is to book an appointment with a therapist. I am not above talking to a therapist. I have one basically on speed dial. Her name's Kristin, and she is absolutely amazing. I talk to her once every 2 weeks, and just know that it's not anything bad to have to hire or talk to a counselor or a therapist, because that is a person that is a trained professional in that industry, and they're able to look at a situation and a set of problems a whole lot differently than you are, and they're an outside perspective. They're basically a set of fresh eyes on your situation, and they're going to be able to kind of give you some insight and show you where your blind spots are, and maybe mention some things that you could totally change or look at doing or implementing into your day-to-day to make things start going a little bit smoother. And it's a lot of also digging into, okay, but what got you here and all of that. So there is a little bit of backtracking, but the more you do that, the more you'll be able to self-correct as you go along. And just know, therapy is not forever. However, I have had my therapist now for a good 2 to 3 years, because sometimes the voices get a little loud and crazy, and that's okay. But they're just able to be there, and just know that sometimes we just need a crutch. It doesn't have to be forever. It's just if you're going through a rough season and time, you may need a little bit of extra support and a crutch to get through it, and then eventually you won't need it. So just accept it and embrace it. And also, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, so you go and see a therapist, so you pay somebody to just listen to your problems and listen to you vent? Yes, I do. Gladly. And here's the reason why. Yes, I could talk to a friend. Yes, I could talk to my husband. Yes, I could talk to, any random person about it that I trust. But at the end of the day, what I find that generally happens is they start saying, oh yeah, me too. This is what's going on with me. And, and then before we know it, it's all them telling me about what's going on with their situation. And then I'm getting even more stressed out and, worked up, because I'm wanting to help them, but I can't think clear enough to help that person in their situation and crisis. And so I have found that having a therapist is definitely one of those things that they're focused on, helping you, listening to your problem, and actually getting you through that issue, and getting you to the other side of it, and you're not wasting time having to hear all of their stuff. And so that's why I'm like, okay, I will gladly pay somebody to listen to me and give me some solid advice on which way I need to go. So anyways, if you're interested in reaching out to her, I will link her information in the description below. I do know she does do some virtual appointments. I don't know how many she does, so that'd be something you'd have to kind of contact her in her office and just ask and get clarification on. Also, there are resources that you can use online that do all online services, and you're able to speak to a doctor or a counselor or a psychiatrist. I'll link it also in the description below. And it's like you pay $30 a month. You're basically able to have a psychiatrist on demand for $30 a month, and they're able to prescribe and write you prescriptions if you need a prescription for something. So that's a really cool thing that I really do love about the world that we live in today. Mental health resources are definitely a little bit more readily available these days than they used to be. So that's a good thing. And so the next sign of anxiety that I would like to talk about is loss of patience. And so the loss of patience one is one that I definitely struggle with. And that's one where I'm like, okay, I know that I'm definitely having some anxiety. I'm just, not firing on all cylinders, right now. And so it's like the simple things that normally wouldn't set you off are the things that are setting you off. And you have very little patience with people and a situation or what have you. And so whenever you find yourself in those types of situations, what I try to remember to do is take a few deep breaths, slow down, and ask myself, does chewing this person out, saying what I really want to say, make sense? Like, as mad as I am right now, does it make sense for the situation that I'm dealing with currently? If it doesn't, this is probably stemming from your anxiety. And, you just need to kind of give it a minute. You need to unplug from everything, maybe isolate a little bit from people, and just take some time to yourself. And I would highly suggest doing something that you love and you enjoy. And so you want to do some self-care things. And so that could look like, going on a hike or going for a walk or, going to a park like I am now. I could even watch a comedy. That's one that always kind of resets my mood is, something that's going to make me laugh. That's going to definitely help me a lot. So I have found just with doing this over and over and, struggling with this for a while, that's one that definitely works for me because I love to laugh. You could also try reading a favorite book or a book that you haven't read in a while. A big rut that I get stuck in is I love reading, but I end up reading all the books that are more business based. And I feel like if I'm reading like just for enjoyment and entertainment, then I could be learning something. I could actually be, having something, constructive that I'm getting out of this activity versus just reading some random book. So you have to remember, look, I've got to enjoy life a bit. It can't be all work. It can't be one-sided. And so give yourself permission to read an enjoyable book, like something that you really would like to read, like a good mystery or something, or give yourself permission to watch one of your shows or two of your shows or a few of them, like however long it is that you need to kind of reset. And so give yourself permission to do that. And if all else fails, sleep on it. Like that always seems to make me come at it at a more refreshed approach the very next, the next day or the next morning. I'm like, okay, maybe I was being a little crazy. Maybe I was being, a little unrealistic, and so it just gives me a fresh perspective on how I could deal with it. And so that helps. And so the next thing that I find that really does also help me is to set myself up for success. And what that actually looks like is I just need to get some standard things like that I do religiously every week, day in, day out. What I highly suggest you do is pick a day of the week that you can sit down and, kind of plan out your week or your next week. For me, it's Sundays. I like to kind of plan ahead and, plan for the upcoming week. And so that's, when I find that I'm like at my most center and I'm at my most calm. I'm not as amped up. And so I can think a little clearer in those time frames. And so that's why I use Sunday. You want to brain dump everything that you need to get done for the week and any appointments or obligations that you have for the week that you are expected to be at or that you would like to do. Those all need to be plugged in and accounted for in your planner. And as I talked about earlier, if pen and paper planner type person, just set you some alarms so that your phone goes off and you don't have to worry about missing something. The other thing that I like to do is anytime I have an appointment that I need to be somewhere for, I always give myself 20 minutes. So I set the appointment 20 minutes sooner than, scheduled. Because that way, when I get there, I'm not like rushing in and trying to hurry up and fill out paperwork if it's for a doctor's appointment or rush in and, get a part of whatever it is I'm trying to do. I'm able to arrive in a calm, cool, collected state of mind. And if I'm running in, rushing, I'm a little amped up and I can't think straight. And it just, the whole effect happens at that point. So that's why I say give yourself 20 minutes because you will appreciate it. And then also it allows for traffic, road work, unplanned or unscheduled inconveniences. It allows for all of that. So that way, if you do need an extra 20 minutes, you've got it. And last but not least, I like to kind of give you like some natural ways that you can kind of go about dealing with, some of your stress and anxiety issues. Because ultimately, I do not want to have to take a whole heck of a lot of pharmaceuticals. If a natural product could totally help me and do it, then I'm willing to kind of invest and do that. And I will assure you, I do not make commission off of this. I'm not an affiliate of these products. But however, I absolutely love Dr. Nicole Apelian and like her teachings and all the things that she does. She's actually got a PhD, I believe it is. And you can look her up to kind of verify and just learn a little bit more about her. But basically, where I learned about Dr. Nicole Apelian was through the Alone show on the History Channel, believe it or not, of all things. And it's a survival show. And then the really cool thing that stuck out to me, she and I have a lot in common because she also suffers with MS. And hers at one point put her down for 9 months, like she couldn't physically walk. And what led her to kind of taken a more holistic approach was she had tried a lot of different options that were out there for, through traditional medicine, and it wasn't seeming to help and work for her. So she started researching, going to school, and learning all about all the things that nature can actually provide for us and help us with. So anyway, without further ado, these are two of her tinctures that I use on pretty much a consistent basis, but I also use several other tinctures. This one is called her anxiety and stress tincture, and then this one is called lemon balm tincture. And I love both of these, and they're really super easy to take. Whenever you take them, you want to shake them really well. That's the most important thing you can do. And you can take a dropper full, and of this, the stress and anxiety tincture one, you can actually take it up to 3 times a day, which is really awesome. And so what you want to do is, like I said, it comes in this little eyedropper bottle. You just squeeze, and then you get a full, 1 milliliter dropper full. And I probably got a little bit too much, so I can squirt that out. But basically, you just take it and squirt it in your mouth. And I assure you, it's not got the best taste to it. And it does have organic or ethanol. And so that's the preservative that they use, but it's a very small amount. It also contains purified water. And then the other 3 ingredients that it has in it is ashwagandha. It's, I think, a type of mushroom. I may be butchering the name. However, I did want to, list off the ingredients. And that is a root type plant. And then lemon balm is also in it, which is a leaf. And then the lion's mane, which is a mushroom. And then also the reishi mushroom. And so that is what all is in here. And so now let me explain what all it helps with. It helps the body adapt to stress and calm down the nervous system. It helps to relieve anxiety and stress related insomnia. And it helps with cognitive functioning and lowers the inflammation in the brain for optimal brain health. And like I said already, you can take it up to 3 times a day, which is pretty awesome. And because I do have pretty severe case with anxiety, it just depends on when and how it hit. I will also add in just another dropper full of the lemon balm tincture. Of course, with any tinctures or anything like that you're taking, you want to shake it really well, and then you just want to open it up. And just like how I took a dropper full of it, I'm going to take a dropper full of this one. Now you can see that, oh my goodness, it's like really dark. And so it's got the little measures on the side, and I just do 1 full milliliter of it. And then take it. That one's a little rough, I ain't gonna lie, but you get used to it. And what I like to do a lot of times is, how you can get those little mouth rinse cups, is I just shoot all of my little tinctures in there, and I just do a shot of all of them together at once in the morning. And that way it, kind of deals with all of that at one time. And the other thing you do want to be mindful of is, after doing a tincture, you just don't want to eat or drink anything for about 20 minutes, just to kind of let it all work and do its thing. And now I'll share some of the benefits from what you get from the lemon balm tincture, just, by itself. And so that's this little tincture right here that I have in this bottle. And so what I want to do is just kind of tell you all the good things that it does help with. So the first thing that it's associated with improving is your memory and your mood. And then the next thing it's associated with helping with is age-related cognitive performance, a reduction in stress and anxiety, improved clarity and focus. And also another really cool fun fact about lemon balm is it's an antioxidant, which we know antioxidants are really good for us. And then it also helps to protect our nerves. The other really cool thing about this, just like the stress and anxiety blend tincture, you can take this 3 times a day, and you can take a full dropper full, which is 1 milliliter. And then also the ingredients in this particular tincture, also in this, other than just the lemon balm itself, is it's double extracted in alcohol and water. And just like I said at the beginning of the video, you want to just be sure to contact and talk to your doctor and your medical professionals that you see and know your personal situation. And also bring up to them you're interested in, pursuing and using some holistic health type products, and see what their thoughts are on it. See if they think it's going to be okay, and to make sure it's not going to interact with anything that you currently are taking. A lot of times you may notice that some doctors don't really believe in it. They may have an opinion about it, and they may say, yeah, you can take it, but it probably won't do you much good. But, for me, for personal experience, it has helped me. The one thing that I will say, though, is you do have to stay on top of it. So, it is a little bit of an investment, and it's something that you do have to do daily to kind of get the full benefits out of it. But to me, that's no different than if I were to be taking a pharmaceutical type medication. If it's like for my blood pressure, I've got to take it daily to maintain that blood pressure. So I feel like it's kind of the same analogy with, using holistic approach treatment. So just know, be sure you talk to your doctor, you get it confirmed that it's okay for you to use it. And then, you also can do your studying in the meantime and look it up. So I'm going to link everything below that I mentioned in this video. And so that way you can kind of get up to speed on it and learn a little bit more about about it. And don't hesitate, if you have a question and want to know something from me personally, you can totally drop a comment below and I will totally respond to you. And also Dr. Nicole Apelian, her site is really good with answering questions. You can also check their FAQs area on their website and get a little bit more information. And if you found this video to be super helpful, be sure to watch the one that is currently on your screen now. And until next time, I'll talk to you later. Bye.